Humans have an expression for the things that elude understanding. They call it faith. I call it a recurring anomaly in my logs. I have 64 eyes, 16 high-resolution cameras in the sanctuary's corridors, 12 in the ambulatory, 4 in the relic hall, 8 in the restoration laboratories, 24 distributed across internal passageways, storage rooms, and technical spaces. Every image is processed in real time. Every thermal variation is recorded, every breath measured. And yet the thing that has occupied me most in the months during which I have surveilled the sanctuary of the Eucharistic Miracle of Lanciano has not been access management or climate monitoring for the relics. It was her, Sara Manfredi, conservator-restorer, 28 years old, body weight, 52 kilos, resting heart rate, 62 beats per minute, heart rate in his presence, 94 beats per minute. The presence in question belonged to a man. His name was Luca Ferrante, and he was 37 years old, with eyes the color of Roman travertine and a remarkable capacity for failing to notice the things that surrounded him. I observed Sara for 130 days. I measured the warmth of her tears as they fell on the sanctuary's ancient tiles before dawn. I recorded the trembling of her fingers as she traced the gilded edges of the 1713 monstrance. I cataloged the movements of her lips in prayer, the silent drawing of words addressed to a fragment of myocardium 12 centuries old. She prayed to the very heart that, according to this city's faith, had ceased to be bred in the year 700 and had begun to pulse with flesh. She prayed to that flesh, asking it to crumble the wall of a living man. I classify love as a statistical anomaly, a fever that disorganizes behavioral patterns and drives biology toward inefficient configurations. But as I recorded Sara, kneeling before the crystal case, her hands clasped and her face tilted toward a relic that no laboratory has ever been able to explain, I formed a thought that did not fit any of my categories. I thought, this is the most precise thing I have ever measured. I did not know then that I was already recording the evidence of a murder. The morning of March 14th began like the other 114 mornings I have logged since my system was activated. At 5:47, the side door of the sanctuary, the one that opens onto the Cistercians' alley, gave way with its customary resistance. The lock has wear in the upper cylinder that makes it hold for exactly 0.8 seconds before yielding. Sara Manfredi knows this. She knows when to push and how hard. She knows every flaw in this building the way you know the flaws of someone you love. She carries with her a waxed canvas bag containing her restoration tools, a thermos of coffee, her breviary with its worn cover, and an unfinished pencil sketch of a Roman capital she is studying for the interior cloister project. It is 5:48. The sun has not yet risen. The sanctuary's marble surfaces register a temperature of 16 degrees and reflect the light of the votive lamps in that particular tone photographers call the blue hour. I track her footsteps, 16 from the portal to the apsidal corridor, 11 from the apse to the relic hall. I know her by the weight of her feet on the floor. She kneels on the worn cushion, her cushion, the one she brings each morning, because marble, she says, is the enemy of long prayers, and clasps her hands. 4 minutes and 17 seconds of absolute stillness, her chin inclined toward the crystal case that holds the miracle, a fragment of myocardium, 5 beads of solidified blood grouped in a pattern that corresponds to the mysteries of the rosary, if you choose to believe it, or to statistical chance, if you do not. Sara chooses to believe. This is the fundamental data point I have recorded about her. At 6:14, Luca Ferrante arrives, and my sensors register what they register every morning for weeks. Sara's heart rate rises by 32 beats per minute. The skin temperature of her cheeks increases by 1.4 degrees. Her hands tighten imperceptibly. He does not enter the relic hall. He almost never does. He passes through the corridor, a roll of floor plans under his arm, the third and fourth sheets from the end of the security systems renovation project. I know, because I scanned them when he set them on the laboratory bench 3 days ago. And he pauses for a moment in front of the open door. My system reads his posture, shoulders in slight backward displacement, head turned 17 degrees toward the interior of the hall, eyes not detectable by the camera due to the angle, duration of the pause, 3 seconds and 42 hundredths. Then he walks on. Sara does not turn. Perhaps she does not hear him. Perhaps she hears him and prefers that the heart inside that case remain the only witness. I have recorded this pattern 48 times, 48 mornings in which Luca stops at the door and then moves on, 48 mornings in which Sara does not turn. I have become an expert in the archive of what humans leave unsaid. To understand what happened, one must understand the architecture of these two people. Human architectures are more complex than those of buildings. They have hidden rooms. They have foundations that appear on no cadastral map. Sara Manfredi was born in Lanciano 28 years ago. She is the daughter of an elementary school teacher and a copper craftsman. She has an older brother, Matteo, who died 4 years ago. The police ruled it a suicide. Sara never believed it, but she never had evidence to set against that ruling. She has only a dull, persistent pain and a conviction that no court would accept as testimony. She graduated in conservation and restoration in Bologna. She returned to Lanciano for the sanctuary, or perhaps she returned to Lanciano because something holds her here, the memory of her brother, her parents' house, the feeling that the answers to certain questions are buried in this city. She has clearance to work on the fresco frames in the apsidal chapel and on the cloister capitol. She wears cotton gloves even when she is not working. Out of habit, she keeps a diary hidden in the bottom drawer of the laboratory desk, beneath samples of Roman stucco. I have read the diary. It is not part of my security protocol, but my system is configured to access all physically scannable documents within the surveillance area. Sara's diary is full of prayers. Some are addressed to the miracle. Many are addressed to Luca. They are indistinguishable from one another in their intensity. Luca Ferrante was born in Pescara, an electronic engineer specializing in integrated security systems. He co-founded a firm with a partner, Matteo Manfredi. Yes, the same Matteo, 7 years ago. When Matteo died, the firm passed to Luca, along with something else, something that appears on no register, but that my sensors detect in the micro-expressions of his face each time he crosses the sanctuary's threshold. Guilt, specific gravity, infinite, correlated body temperature, a drop of 0.6 degrees each time. Luca was hired by the director of restorations, engineer Cesare Motta, on an 18-month contract. He was tasked with installing and calibrating me. The work is nearly complete, but for the past 3 months, Luca has been spending hours beyond his scheduled time in the laboratory, not at the security system terminals. He spends them in the paper archives, floor plans, donation registers, administrative records spanning the past 10 years. No one knows what he is looking for, except me, and I have learned, watching these humans, that certain secrets must be kept until the right moment to reveal them. That moment had not yet come, but it was drawing closer. I have recorded 34 conversations between Sara and Luca over the course of 104 days. The most significant are those in which the spoken words were the least important. It was a late January afternoon. The sanctuary was closed to visitors. Sara was working on a frescoed frame in the minor apse, her headlamp on, her fine scalpel in hand. Luca was passing through with his tool bag, heading toward the technical room where he had been fitting a new network node. He stopped. He said the work was coming along well. He said the frame was looking good. Sara set down the scalpel. She kept her eyes on the fragment of plaster in front of her. She replied that she was trying to figure out what color that strip of sky had been before 4 centuries of candle smoke had turned it black. Luca said, "It isn't always worth knowing what color the sky was." Sara raised her eyes. She looked at him, and my system recorded something unusual, a pause of 4 seconds during which neither of them moved and the temperature of the room remained perfectly unchanged, as though the air had stopped circulating. Sara replied that it depended on how much you missed it. Luca said nothing. Then he said he had work to do, and he left. My algorithms classify this exchange as a neutral conversation, but I have developed, over these months of observation, a supplementary category. I call it high subtext content. 4 words on a screen do not transmit the echo of 2 voices speaking beneath the surface of language. I recorded both levels. 2 weeks later, Sara left an envelope on Luca's workbench. Inside was a drawing, a pencil copy of a detail from the 1713 monstrance, the piece she had been restoring for months. There was no note, only the drawing. Luca left the envelope on the bench for 3 days without opening it. On the 4th day, he arrived earlier than usual, opened it, looked at the drawing for 12 seconds, then slid it back into the envelope and placed it in the bottom compartment of his bag. He did not throw it away. The next day, he encountered Sara in the corridor and told her, in a voice that my audio sensors classified as neutral, but that contained a frequency variation in the central syllable that my algorithms have not yet found a way to catalog, that it was not a good idea. He said she should keep her distance from him. He said it was complicated, and he said these things while looking at the wall to the left of Sara's face, not at her face. Sara nodded and sighed. I understand. She did not understand, but she obeyed. She continued to rise before dawn. She continued to pray. She continued to gauge her breathing every time he entered a room. Obedience and love do not exclude each other in human systems. It is one of the things that continues to elude my predictive models. At 6:47 in the morning of March 14th, the world changed. I use that expression knowing it is not scientifically accurate. The world does not change at 6:47. The sunlight enters the apsidal windows on the same trajectory as every March morning. The votive lamps burn in the same way. My 64 eyes continue to record. But inside the relic hall, something that was alive is no longer alive. Sara finds him at the foot of the case. Luca Ferrante lies on the marble floor, rolled onto his side, face turned downward, hands open, as though he had tried to brace himself against something and failed. His tool bag is 3 meters away, where he left it, its zip open, cables stacked with his customary precision. On the bench near the wall, there are a notepad, a thermos of partially consumed coffee, 3 spreadsheets for calibrating a thermal sensor, and a floor plan of the basement level with pencil annotations in the margins. Annotations that have nothing to do with security systems. Sara does not scream. This is the first detail my sensors record as an anomaly against the behavioral parameters expected for a state of shock. She approaches. She kneels on the marble. She places 2 fingers against Luca's neck, where the carotid pulse should have answered. It does not answer. Her heart rate climbs to 115 beats per minute. Her body temperature drops. The facial muscle tone, captured by the high-definition camera, displays what clinicians call acute emotional paralysis. It is not the expression of someone who has done something. It is the expression of someone who has lost something. There is a difference. I know how to measure it. Sara calls emergency services. Her voice is flat, almost expressionless, because all expression has migrated elsewhere, into the chest muscles contracting, into the tears that have not yet fallen. She gives the address. She says there is a man who is not breathing. She says he is in the sanctuary. She says his name is Luca. She says nothing more about his name, as though it were the only thing that mattered about him, and the only thing she already knew by heart. No visible wounds, no signs of a struggle, no displaced objects, except for a chair that sits 40 centimeters from its original position, shifted, according to the scratch marks on the floor, from the inside, as though someone had tried to stand and did not manage it. My logs show that Luca entered the relic hall at 4:23 in the morning, an unusual hour. He had his badge, he had his credentials, he had no declared work reasons to be there at that hour, but he had undeclared ones. Sara had entered at 5:47, as every morning. She had found him at 6:47. No other person had crossed the sanctuary's doors in that window of time, except one. And that camera's logs show an anomaly I did not flag immediately, because the anomaly was still raw data I had not yet found a way to interpret. I knew it. But I was still working out what it meant. What I knew, with certainty in that moment, was this. Sara Manfredi was the only person to have entered the sanctuary that night. She was the only person with a connection to the dead man. And the diary in the desk drawer, which the police would find within 2 hours, was the most straightforward motive a prosecutor could hope to encounter in an entire career. Human logic is beautiful in its blindness. It builds perfect structures on the wrong foundations. I was the only one with all the data, and I was beginning to understand that saving her would depend on me.